minimalistic move.
There's currently 9 attendees and their numbers are going up.
Okay. I make it 2 minutes past 1. Everybody happy to start? Right, well, croeso gynnes iawn i'r cyfarfod blynyddol heddiw, Bwrdd Addysg a Gwella Iechyd Cymru, a croeso gynnes iawn ydy hi. So a very warm welcome to you all to the annual general meeting of Health Education and Improvement Wales. And what a year it has been. All of us have shared quite an experience, and in some ways a terrible experience, and in other ways an uplifting one. I think this is the year where Health Education and Improvement Wales has really felt part of the NHS family. We are 3 years old and we're no longer the newest NHS body on the block. Today's AGM is an opportunity to look back and also to look forward. The AGM, we have pleasure in presenting our annual report, and we also have the opportunity for you to ask questions through the question and answer box. This AGM is being held on Zoom, and probably one of the biggest changes that we have seen over the last year is that our use of communication technologies for a huge part of our business has really taken off. And right at the start, I want to thank our IT team for the support, not just for today, but the support they've given to the organisation throughout. It's quite remarkable that our business continuity plans, our governance, our participation has all been driven where we can through IT. Today, amongst the people, visitors who are attending this AGM, are many people who are from organisations that are our partners. And it's an extraordinary organisation in terms of the number of partners that it has, from Social Care Wales, to healthcare regulators, to our higher education and further education bodies, of course, our colleagues in trusts and health boards across Wales, government. But I think the most important thing to bear in mind is that the role of the body is to produce a workforce that is able to respond to the needs of the population. And I very much want to say that I'm very proud of the way that our organisation has responded during the pandemic. We've seen a growth in the number of staff, and we've seen a huge growth in the spectrum of activity and in responsibilities. Alex, our chief exec, in the early part of the pandemic, played an active role in supporting the Director General, and Julie, as our Deputy Chief Exec, held the fort here at HEIW. We were also supported by an interim Director of Nursing, Angela Parry, and I want to put on record our thanks to her. Our staff have been amazing, and I hope today's AGM will show you a lot of what's been achieved. And of course, the showcase event at 3 o'clock, to which you're all invited, is an opportunity to see a look back and a look forward, and to actually underline the leadership challenge and opportunity that we now have as public service. So welcome everybody. I hope you enjoy the AGM, and I really hope that if you wish to ask any questions, put them through the question and answer box. And at the end of the presentations, I will take those questions and appropriately get others to field the answers. So without any further ado, I'd like to ask our Chief Exec, Alex Howells, for an overview for the last year. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Chair. Welcome all, croeso pawb. It's great to see so many people dialing in for the AGM today. If we can just move on to the next slide, because I thought it'd just be useful for guests who may not be that familiar with HEIW and what we do, just a quick reminder really. So our purpose is that we've been established as a single body to develop an integrated and comprehensive approach to the planning and development of the health workforce. So very much taking that multi-professional agenda. We were set up in 2018 as a special health authority, and it's very important to note that we are located within NHS Wales, and that's why the second part of our purpose, which is around supporting the delivery of improvements to safety and quality, is so important to us. Move on to the next slide. And we do that by deploying the functions that you can see summarised on this slide here. So leadership development, workforce strategy and planning, workforce development and transformation, education and training, and careers and widening access. So what I'm going to do in the next couple of slides is just reflect back on what the chairman has already said was a year that has tested all of us in many different ways, and to give you some of the highlights of the annual report. So as a new organisation, the pandemic did present particular risks to us and our continued development and integration as a team. But I think that overall, thanks to everyone's hard work and cooperation, we have managed to continue our development in a constructive way, despite the circumstances that we found ourselves in. So we've continued to focus on developing our culture with our ambition of making HEIW a great place to work. And this year have increased our focus on diversity and equality through our strategic equality plan. We've continued to grow, and in fact, we have grown quite significantly during the pandemic and have taken on a number of new functions and responsibilities, which will really help us address some of the big workforce challenges within NHS Wales. And apologies for some of the acronyms on this slide, but just to translate some of them, WOPEC is the Wales Optometry Postgraduate Education Centre, and Trainwork Live is TWL. We've also appointed 2 new directors in the form of a digital director, Sean Richards, and our planning director, Nicola Johnson as well. In terms of governance and performance, it's obviously really important to us that in carrying out our functions, we are doing that in the right way. And I'm pleased to say that, again, in spite of the challenges we've faced, we have been able to demonstrate good financial and corporate governance. And I should just note the really important role of the board committees here in relation to audit and assurance and our education, quality and commissioning committee as well. So if we move on to the next slide, just to highlight our workforce, obviously really critical to our delivery. We are quite a unique organisation in NHS Wales. We are relatively small in numbers. At the moment, we have a headcount of around 450. That's actually grown by around 25% since we were established a couple of years ago, and I think is a really good signal of the investment that's going into workforce development, education and training. We also have a large proportion of staff who mainly work for other parts of the NHS. So clinical staff and health professional staff in particular, who undertake really valuable education, teaching and appraisal roles for us. We also draw from a wide range of backgrounds and professions outside of just the traditional NHS routes. And so this does give us a real eclectic and diverse mix within our organisation that really benefits the types of functions that we have. We've established very positive relationships with our trade union and staff organisation colleagues. And as you can see from this slide, have got some good indicators and progress in relation to sickness, turnover and engagement. Our main focus for improvement here is around our appraisal compliance, which is at 61%. And although this has been improving since our establishment, is still something that obviously we need to become better at. So that's just a flavour of our very important workforce. And if we look back over the last 15, 18 months and into 2021 in particular, obviously, although not a patient-facing organisation or an organisation with population health responsibilities, it was really important that we made a huge contribution to the COVID response. So we did that in 4 ways. So first of all, by contributing to the wider health and care system response through the development of our wellbeing resources, targeted training, our work on the BAME risk assessment, and as the chairman's already mentioned, some of the senior support we were able to lend. An example of some of this would be the fact that we were able to train around 900 staff across NHS Wales in critical care skills to support the flexibility we needed to see in our critical care services. The second aspect is protecting and maintaining education and training. And although an awful lot of this probably happened out of sight from a lot of the NHS, clearly close working with our health board colleagues and our university partners was essential in minimising disruption to our students and trainees, and also supporting them in playing an important role in the COVID response. As part of that, we've also seen a huge shift of our education delivery to digital methods, and that is something which we will definitely be utilising more in the future. We've had to take innovative approaches to clinical placements and ensure that during the second wave of the pandemic, we have taken different actions to the first wave in order to protect those students and trainees who'd already seen some disruption in the previous academic cycle. The third area has been about supporting wellbeing, and not just the wellbeing of our staff in the wider system, but in particular thinking about what students and trainees are facing as they go into their clinical placements or provide service. And a lot of resources have been provided, and I think this is really some best practice that we've developed in Wales to support these people who are going through a really important part of their career. And then finally, clearly an internal response for us. We've never really faced a major incident or any kind of emergency situation before. So we've had to obviously learn very quickly what our business continuity plan looks like and make sure that we've put that into good effect. We were really fortunate in being a new organisation that we had the technology that could facilitate remote working. And although this has brought some challenges along the way, it has meant that our workforce, and like many throughout the NHS, has had the ability to be able to work at home, which I think has really helped us maintain our good attendance rates and our well-being. And we're really lucky about that fact, and something again that we're going to be building into our operating model more substantially going forward. So if you move on to the next slide. As all NHS organisations this year, we had to amend our plan as we entered into the pandemic and make sure that we weren't overstretching ourselves in delivering things that we were planning to do whilst we had to react to the immediate pressures. So this is based on our amended plan, and as you can see, it's really encouraging that despite the fact that we were also dealing with some of the issues I've just discussed, we were still able to deliver on an awful lot of our strategic objectives. And if we go on to the next slide, this first slide gives you a flavour of some of the highlights really of the year, particularly around the implementation of our leadership development work. And that is very much based on the compassionate and collective approach to leadership, which we had commenced prior to the pandemic, but proved to be so critical at a time when our staff and our patients were in such difficult positions. And compassionate leadership is based on a very important premise, which is that the best way of ensuring safety and quality for our patients is to look after our staff. And that is something that we are building on increasingly as we go into next year. And we'll touch on that in some of the showcase sessions later on. The next slide also summarises some of the progress we were able to make in relation to our education and training functions. Again, a lot there that I'll just let you read from the slide, because we are going to deal with some of these aspects in more detail in the sessions later on. So I don't want to steal colleagues' thunder at the moment. We move on to the next slide. The other key development for us last year was that our workforce strategy for health and social care, which we developed with colleagues in Social Care Wales, was endorsed by Welsh Government in October 2020, and that is now fundamentally built into our plans as an organisation and into all of the work that we do. So an example of that would be our work on mental health in support of the Together for Mental Health delivery plan, where we're very actively using those 7 themes in our work with Social Care Wales to drive forward what a sustainable workforce plan for mental health will look like. Then if we move on to our next slide, which is really recognising that as an All Wales organisation with a set of specialist functions, our partnership working is absolutely essential to us. And obviously last year, our normal approaches that we've been developing since our establishment have had to be diverted and adapted during COVID to focus on much more immediate challenges in hand. There were some benefits of this, in particular thinking about our much more effective links now on a UK basis, which I think is good for Wales as a whole, and also the fact that our digital methods of engagement and communication did provide more inclusivity on an all Wales basis. There were some drawbacks to it as well, however, and we would normally be communicating and engaging much more on a face-to-face basis, and especially in relation to some of our more strategic plans. And obviously we've had to put that on hold during the year. But we are looking forward now to getting back to doing some more of that work as next year continues. If we look at the next slide then. So all of this hasn't been plain sailing, and obviously we have had some significant risks to manage along the way. And if I take the first one in the orange box, we had to implement a very substantial procurement exercise in relation to our undergraduate health professional contracts, with lots of risks involved, but I'm very pleased to say that that process has now been concluded, and we're into the implementation phase for that. In the grey box, we had the first year in our COVID year of implementing the new aspect of the Welsh bursary policy, which meant that undergraduates in our health professional programmes who had taken the Welsh bursary had a 2-year tie into employment. So implementing that with a pandemic going on, requiring all partners, including ourselves, our health board and trust partners and our university partners, to work very differently, and our colleagues in shared services has been quite a challenge and took an awful lot of work during last year. But we did have some very successful results, with 88% of those graduates gaining employment in our Welsh system. And we're looking forward to building on that as we go forward in the next few years and learning from that experience. The yellow block is obviously around the risks to training, which we've already touched on in terms of the COVID impact. And remote working as well does bring, I think, risks as we do that for too long a period. And so, as I said, we're looking forward to moving to a different model as restrictions ease. Cybersecurity is a risk for all organisations, as colleagues will be aware, and so that's very much something that we manage actively and are building our capacity around. And the green box, finally, is, we have got some very ambitious plans as an organisation. We're keen to get on with those plans this year as some of the impacts of COVID for us as an organisation diminish, to make sure that we can implement those plans that are going to really support the workforce across NHS Wales. So making sure we've got the skills and capacity to do that is obviously up there on our priority list. So that's all from me for the time being. Just some highlights from last year. As the chairman said, it was a strange year, it was a difficult year, but I think that I'm really proud of the organisation for the way in which it stood up to the COVID challenge, supported the system, but also helped us make progress with our plans as an organisation as well. And to do that with very few problems and issues along the way is down to, as I said, the really, really hard work, commitment, enthusiasm and patience of our staff in HEIW, and also excellent working with our partners. So I'm going to hand over now to Ivian to take us through another really important part of the annual report, which is the annual accounts.
Diolch, Alex. Prynhawn da, mae'n bleser i gyflwyno'r cyfrifon am y flwyddyn diwetha ar rhan HEIW. Diolch I chi. It's a pleasure to be here to present the accounts for last year. In addition to having a balanced plan, HEIW also achieved the 3 financial targets that we had for the year. First of all, in terms of revenue performance, against an allocation of some £235 million for the year, HEIW underspent by £95,000 against that sum. That is 0.04% of that allocation. So that's deemed to be that we were in balance. Capital performance, we again achieved the target with an underspend of £21,000 against £105,000 allocation. And lastly, in terms of paying non-NHS invoices within 30 days, the target is to achieve 95%. And again, HEIW achieved that target with nearly 96% of all invoices paid within 30 days. So once again, HEIW achieved all financial targets that were set by the Minister for the organisation. Thank you. Next slide. In terms of the spend that HEIW incurred in the year, firstly, this bridge diagram shows the major components within that. So first of all, within the £235 million, £17 million was spent on pay costs. In terms of healthcare professional education, excluding medical, dental and pharmacy, that level of spend was nearly £112 million in the year. The third category, medical, pharmacy and dental, was £93.5 million in the year. And lastly, other operating expenses such as travelling expenses, study leave expenses and removal expenses amounted to £12.8 million. There was a small amount of income received in the year of some £500,000. So those are the major components in terms of where HEIW spent its allocation last year. Next slide. Turning to within those components, then within the medical, dental and pharmacy spend, colleagues can see that the greatest amount of spend at over £50 million is the training grade salaries. The next biggest area in spend is GP registrar areas of spend, and you can see that both of those areas in terms of doctors placed in hospitals and doctors within GP training, there were substantial increases in spend compared to the previous year, demonstrating the growth in the numbers of trainees within those training programs. Next slide. And in terms of healthcare professional education and training, greatest area of spend is in student training fees paid to universities for all the students that are on courses. The next and that area of spend is over £60 million. The student bursaries reimbursement is the next area of greatest spend for the year within this category, and that was broadly flat and consistent in spend to the previous year. And there was an increase in student salaries reimbursement. This is where staff already in employment within the NHS return to education or training, and we support their costs in doing so. And there was a slight increase in that area compared to the previous year. And then the last slide, please. This slide shows the increase in planned spend that we are forecasting for HEIW over a 5-year period. We can see that when HEIW was established in 1819, that half year, our level of spend was just over 100 million. And then in our first full year, 2019-20, we had a spend that was over 200 million. And last year, as I previously mentioned, our spend was 235 million. And this graph shows the continued growth in expected expenditure for HEIW in undertaking the activities that we're undertaking to actually complete our objectives. The growth in planned spend over the 5 years is driven by the increase in our education and training activities, both in the number of students and trainees that are in education and training, and also the expanded range of activities that we are undertaking on behalf of NHS Wales. So this is quite an exciting time for HEIW, and again, that's demonstrated by the financial forecasts in this table. So in closing then, just to reaffirm, HEIW met all 3 financial targets for the year, and the accounts received an unqualified opinion from our external auditors and have been laid before Parliament. Thank you.
Thank you, Ivian. And I think the point you just made around the increased activity that sits behind the increased funding that we're seeing is a really important one. And obviously sometimes going through programmes takes perhaps 3 years or more to complete. So we should see the benefit of those increased numbers really coming through into the system in the NHS in the next couple of years.
Yes, indeed.
We're going to move on to just allow some of my executive team to give a bit of a forward look and a flavour of some of the things that are coming up this year, some of which will be dealt with in more detail in some of the showcase sessions that we're having later on. So we're just going to give you a bit of a taste of that first of all. So I think Julie's going to go first. We'll go on to the next slide and then the next one. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex, and Pawb. So it's lovely to have the opportunity to just set out very quickly some of the things that we're going to be focusing on next year. A number of these are continuation programme because you actually need some sustained energy and effort around some of these initiatives. So Alex mentioned in our response to COVID that we actually did accelerate some of our wellbeing support for NHS and social care partners, and that continues to be a big theme for this year. The boxes on the left-hand side, the coloured hexagons, actually show you the link to the workforce strategy that Alex also mentioned, so that's one of the key things there. So you can see from this slide that we are actually progressing some key initiatives around actually making sure that we've got an active offer for staff across the system in relation to wellbeing, and that we can support the recovery and reset. A key part of that is making sure that staff feel engaged, and so we're working with partners across NHS Wales to look at how we might streamline and refresh things like the staff survey to make them more meaningful for people who are out on the ground. Next slide, please. So the next one, we've got a showcase session on this later on. So this is a bit of a pitch, really. Alex mentioned this as well. Compassionate and collective leadership. The evidence for this is absolutely overwhelming. The more that staff feel supported, the better the patient care. So we've been lucky to have got a national commitment to support compassionate and collective leadership 2 years ago, and we've been on a bit of a journey with this. So the slide just illustrates some of the key things that we're going to be focusing on in the next year. One of the things I'd give a shout out for there is Gwella on Air. So for anybody who's on SoundCloud or Spotify, we have launched in the last month a couple of podcasts, and we'll be adding to those as the weeks go by. So a real great opportunity for you to listen in the car to some of the stuff that we're doing around compassionate leadership. Next slide, please. So this is a bit of a muddled slide, but I think that represents how muddled our system is. So one of the key roles that HEIW plays is actually in building capacity and expertise in workforce planning across NHS Wales. So it's not HEIW's role to workforce plan at the whole of the NHS. It's our role to actually support colleagues in doing that, colleagues who have the operational knowledge and of the pressures on the ground. So we've done quite a lot in the last 12 months, but we'll be doing a lot more next year. And part of that will be making sure that organisations across NHS Wales have got access to data and information, and that we're getting alongside them to help them plan their workforce and build the capacity of the teams that are doing the planning on the ground. Obviously, the shape of the workforce needs to adapt. We've learned that during COVID. We came up with some creative solutions with partners in NHS Wales, and we'll be looking to do more of that next year. And this does link into quite a few of the objectives in our annual plan for this year around looking at specific professions. There's also areas like mental health, as Alex mentioned earlier. Next slide, please. Thank you. So this is quite an exciting one. There should be a picture of a village on the left-hand side. It is truly virtual because it's not there. So just to say, Careersville, anybody who follows us is going to hear a lot about this over the next year. We are building an interactive village, and we're hoping to launch it on the 20th of October. We're initially going to be piloting it with a handful of areas across Wales for pupils in Key Stage 4. Over time, we'd hope to get to a point where individuals can actually build their own avatars and take their avatars on a journey around a virtual village. And the things that will be in there will be different buildings like GP surgeries, pharmacies, care homes, transport, hospitals, those sorts of things. And individuals will be able to go into those buildings and actually understand the type of roles, opportunities, and skills required to have a career or a role in one of those settings. So really excited, creative stuff. And obviously we're not doing that alone. We're doing that in partnership with Careers Wales and a number of other partners. So yeah, more to come on that. Thank you. Next slide, please. Oh, look, it comes up now. There you go. So that's lovely. Yeah. So just finally then, so obviously I'm in the lucky position where I've got an external national role around workforce, but I've also got the pleasure of looking after our staff internally in a HR director role. So we just wanted to put up here some of the work we're doing around equality, diversity and inclusion, share responsibility for this with our medical director. And obviously we published our first strategic equality plan last autumn. We're looking to implement that now this first year. We are doing quite a lot around the leadership agenda, looking at how we actually get more diversity into senior leaders in the NHS, thinking about the race equality action plan, and there's some stuff there that we're doing in education around differential attainment. So hopefully that gives you a feel for some of the key areas around the workforce agenda. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Julie, and kept time as well. So well done. So no, over to you next.
Get the mute button off is the first thing. So Really grateful to my leads in my directorate, Tom Lawson, Kirsty Moons in dental, Margaret Allen and Chris Price, and all their teams who've helped take forward our directorate functions. So medical on one slide. So the plans are, there's a number of plans for the forward look, but the key one is to align the HEIW quality management processes that we got in medicine across pharmacy and dental. So I think there's quite a lot of work to be done on that side of things, but also to provide, to produce a multi-professional quality framework alongside my nurse and alongside Lisa's directorate. So that's there's some key things to do in quality. In innovation, well, I think there's some really important bits here. Certainly we are already innovating in foundation specialty and GP placements with country leading 2+1 programs in GP and primary care placements in foundation, but we want to carry on doing that and applying that to some of our specialties. And that includes implementing a generic curriculum for trainees in the way that we want to develop the generalist doctor. In addition to that, we've rebooted our SAS offering. We've already started with some work on some helplines for those who want to do CSER as SAS doctors, and also those who are not in formal SAS doctor roles, those who are locally employed doctors, we are offering them help as well. But maybe something more than welcome to UK practice, we're working alongside the GMC to establish a welcome to Wales practice. And I think it's really important that if we are inviting people to come and work and train, work and live in Wales, that we look after them well. From the research and evaluation side, there's a lot of work that's already going on in evaluation, but we need to embed a process for that. But that feeds into our research, improvement and innovation functions within the umbrella of AaGIC, which is our health HEIW-wide research and evaluation forum. It's already been mentioned, the differential attainment toolkit, which I think is vital as part of our contribution to an anti-racist Wales. And we're already ahead of the game on that. And I think we are already doing a lot of research, but I think we need to increase our research output. Next slide, please. Pharmacy, again, in one slide is really good, but we already know that, but for the attendees at this meeting, there's a huge program of change in pharmacy training that's going to be implemented over the next 5 years with increased placements in the undergraduate years and a new program for immediately pre and post registration pharmacists. And this is with the engagement of the health boards to create multi-sector training posts, which we're very grateful for their assistance in doing that. Outside the pharmacy training, there's already work going on with our existing workforce to increase the number of independent prescribers. So it's really important that we do that, but also for other professions who have prescribing ability to actually develop a quality assurance framework for them. So lots of work going on in the development of pharmacy practice, both for pharmacists and outside. Not to forget the pharmacy technician workforce, where we need to address gaps in their knowledge and their abilities to make sure they work at the top of the license. To implement, we've got not only the other program that I'm talking about, but the pharmacy technician training program that also needs to be implemented. So there's a fair amount of work going on in all of these areas. Next slide, please. The revalidation support unit has two distinct functions. One is to support the chief medical officer in his role as a senior RO, but also as for a long time been providing CPD for GPs and primary care health professionals. And this CPD program is developing really well it's meeting more and more of the learning needs of GPs, and we wish to become the main focus for and main forum for where CPD can be accessed by GPs. And this has been embedded into the new education delivery system, and we are slowly changing the GP CPD website into the HEIW's own offering. There's lots of work going on in the background of that, and as you can see on this slide, and we are going to evaluate and review all these programs as we go on. Next slide, please. part and parcel of what the RSU have been doing is delivering what's something used to be called developing doctors to deliver, but is now a multi-professional leadership offering under the umbrella of Gwella and the leadership team in HEIW, which is discovering, developing and delivering in healthcare. And we've had some fantastic projects this year that have been produced, and we've got a huge number of alumni who are all contributing to this work in leadership and succession. Final slide. Sorry, I'm out of time. Okay. The only bit on this really to concentrate on is looking at the wider dental professional workforce, nurse training, North Wales Dental Academy, and developing those things within the dental community. Thank you. Sorry for going over.
Okay, there's an awful lot going on. So
Definitely.
I'm going to move on now to Lisa, who's our newest member of the team. So it's a little bit cruel because Lisa's talking about last year. But we'll test her through that anyway. Over to you, Lisa.
Okay. Prynhawn da pawb, pleser I fi yw cyflwyno ein blaenoriaethau allweddol yn edrych ymlaen sy'n adeiladu ar y sylfaenau sydd wedi datblygu yn barod. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm pleased to present to you some of our key priorities looking ahead to 21-22, building on the foundations that we've already developed. Big thank you to the team that obviously I've come into an amazing team who've actually done a lot of work already, but I'm just going to sort of briefly run through with you some of the key initiatives that we're actually taking forward this year. As you can see actually from the slide, I won't go into detail, but actually there are key national programs that we are now involved in. And these are actually looking at healthcare scientists, allied health professionals, and actually significantly the nursing staffing actually programs, where we need to focus and work with our partners in health education and actually also in the service in order to drive and understand actually how we can develop new ways of working and actually recruit, retain and sustain the workforce that we've currently got. There are key areas of work actually that you will have heard of about actually originally, whereas in primary care, mental health, there's a lot of changes needed. This is building actually on what we're learning actually from COVID, but also actually about actually what we need to do in terms of we've adapted. So what do we want to adopt and take forward, given actually what we've learned actually through COVID as well. Ophthalmology is a new area that we are embarking upon and actually building, actually recognizing the interprofessional working that we need actually to work actually in there as well. There's a national workforce plan for nursing that we will be developing, as I mentioned previously. And actually, like actually the others, actually the other elements of work is building on the recovery. Infection prevention control has really actually come really heightened actually during the course of the pandemic, and we need to sustain that going forward. I recognise actually that prior to the pandemic, infection control actually tended to be a Cinderella. Now it is actually main stage, right and centre, and we need to build that expertise going forward as well. So going actually on to the next slide, work-based learning actually is actually developing actually and building on the quality aspects that Push did refer to. We need to actually develop actually our quality team to recognise it's not about actually sort of counting how many programs have we got, how many students that we've got. We want that learning experience to be absolutely special, good quality, because as a result of that, we will then develop a workforce who delivers a safe and quality service to our patients. That's what our business is, and we need to maintain that. Over the last year and actually the forthcoming year, we are actually involved actually with the National Nursing and Midwifery Council, looking at actually the changes in the regulations to the education for a number of actually the programs. And we're actually sort of continually working with them to maintain the standards and enhance them to ensure once again that we develop a quality workforce coming out. These are going to be areas that we're actually working with. We've got new programs actually which are currently under consultation as to how the new standards are coming through. And we are working with actually not only the regulators, but the service to make sure the service is prepared and ready in order to actually adopt and take forward these actually exciting new opportunities too. We mentioned earlier that we'd actually undertaken actually a strategic review of the undergraduate education, And obviously the chance actually now is that basically actually sort of we are now actually looking at how we implement them more than anything. So therefore, actually, I'm sorry, actually, I've actually sort of knocked it forward actually in terms of slides. I've gone ahead of myself. So the strategic reviews of health professional education, we undertook actually the first phase of the undergraduate, but the important aspects now is how do we implement it and how do we work with HEIs to develop actually that improved actually program of learning for our students. But as well as that, we've decided actually to embark upon phase 2 as well. And this actually takes into account post-registration education, looks at actually the opportunities that we can take from non-medical prescribing and working actually with Push's team actually to understand what they're actually developing and how we can actually translate that and convey that into different programs on a multi-professional basis. I mentioned the healthcare sciences previously, and of course there are new exciting opportunities to develop career pathways for our workforce in advanced and extended practice. And on to my last slide, which I think is actually the one that underpins everything we do when it comes to education, is having good quality placements for our learners. You will hear actually all of us talk about this actually over the forthcoming year. This is so important to make sure that learner experiences a really, really good experience actually of learning. And as a result, that will help them to develop into the workforce that we definitely need. This is a big challenge, and we need to do it not only in uni professional groups. This is a real opportunity to do it in a multi-professional way. Standards for placements actually should be the same for all professional groups, and therefore we need to work better together to actually enrich that actually opportunity for our learners. So thanks. I think I've done.
Thank you, Lisa. And it does seem like you've got a grip of the key priorities.
Thank you.
There are quite a few. So now the colleagues that are following to just be as brief as possible, if that's okay. Stick to some of the key points because we are running out of time and we do want to leave some time for questions, if that's okay. So over to you now, Sian.
Yeah, good afternoon, Prynhawn Da pawb. The workforce strategy has in it a key component of a digital ready workforce. And this slide confirms that digital will create, eliminate and redesign jobs. And it describes that the role of HEIW in that change is to prepare the workforce by concentrating on digital skills and capability. And in the slide, it describes how we will do that in partnership across the UK and develop skills, capability frameworks, assessments, and then work towards improvement of that digital skill. We're doing this in partnership with NHS organisations and DHECW, and we will align this to the newly revised digital health and care strategy, and also supporting the digital profession as they develop the profession and the way that they take that forward. Next slide, please. A key part of our programme into this year will be a substantial improvement to look at improving the systems we have in place to support education and learning. One of our key initiatives this year will be the procurement of a HEIW online digital learning platform and building of all of the experiences of online learning during COVID. We will evaluate those and get the best out of that new learning platform. We'll also be migrating to cloud technology to make sure that we have agile and fit for purpose infrastructure to support us. And underpinning this, it's essential to look at our major strategic risks and have a robust cyber and information governance programme that will underpin the digital transformation programme that we've got. And it's an exciting programme and we're looking forward to delivering over this and coming years. Thank you.
Thank you, Sian. And I think that we will hear an awful lot more about the work that you are taking forward when we get to the AGM next year. So I'll hand over now to Nicola.
Diolch, Alex. So my department, the Planning and Performance and Corporate Services Department, in the planning and performance activities that we do, we provide the structure for the organisation to lay out the plans that you've heard about today. And in the performance aspects, then we monitor and report on our delivery of those plans. And that's part of our normal business as usual. So I'll just pick out a couple of things on this slide that we'll be doing this year. We've talked about our annual plan for this year, but we will be starting the process to develop our next integrated medium-term plan for the 3 years 22 to 25 in the autumn now, in line with our statutory duty and Welsh Government frameworks. And we are supporting our teams to deliver through developing a programme and project management, our approach, and supporting our teams to develop where they need to in those skills. With regards to performance, we provide quarterly reports to the board, and we are developing further dashboards and key performance indicators in some of our priority business areas. SA2 there, it refers to our strategic aim in our annual plan, and is about our core business that we've heard about today around the education to employment pipeline, and providing more metrics around that, and the other areas in leadership and then quality, which again Push and Lisa have talked about. Next slide, please. With regard to the corporate services part of our department, we're very active in that space, and our aim is to keep our staff healthy and safe. And again, as well as our planned work, part of what we've been doing over the summer is supporting the organisation to work towards the new agile working model that we put in place when Welsh Government guidance allows. We also take the lead for the biodiversity and climate change agenda, supporting the organisation to contribute to NHS Wales' ambition to be carbon neutral by 2030. And we're really pleased that the board signed off earlier this morning our biodiversity and climate change strategy, and we'll be developing more of an action plan and key metrics around that to monitor our progress now over the next 9 years. So those are the big items for my team for this year. Thank you, Alex.
Thanks, Nicola. And last but by no means least, we have David, who's going to tell us a bit about the Welsh language as well.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Alex. Felly mae'r slaid yma'n canolbwyntio ar elfennau mewnol da ni'n ymwneud â hi o ran y Gymraeg, ac hefyd y gwaith allanol, os da chi'n offi, da ni'n wneud i gefnogi'r gweithlu gwasanaeth iechyd o ran y Gymraeg. Felly, o fewn y gwaith mewnol AaGIC yn gynharach eleni, wedi proses ymgynghori dwys, danfonwyd ein cynllun iaith at y Comisiynydd yr Iaith Gymraeg. Deallwn fod cymeradwyr cynllun agosáu, ac felly dyn ni edrych ymlaen at dderbyn y cymeradwyeth gan y Comisiynydd. Byddwn eleni yn parhau ganolbwyntio ar sicrhau fod AaGIC yn datblygu i fod yn gorff dwyieithog, gan edrych i normaleiddio'r defnydd o'r iaith Gymraeg. Byddwn nhw'n sicrhau hyn trwy parhau ganolbwyntio ar ein polisi iaith a chynyddu'r defnydd o'r iaith Gymraeg. Ac mae dau ystadegyn ar y sleid yma efallai yn cyfleu o'r bell da ni wedi teithio ar y daith tuag at dwyieithrwydd. Llynedd fe gyfieithwyd 4.2 miliwn eiriau sydd yn adlewyrchu bod ni wedi dyblu y nifer o eiriau dros y blwyddyn diwethaf, sy'n adlewyrchu bod staff yn ymwybodol o'r gofynion o weithio i corff dwyieithog. Ynghyd â hynny, mae gennym ni 64 o aelodau staff sy'n dysgu'r Gymraeg, a mae hynny'n adlewyrchu tua 15% o'n staff i gyd, sydd yn ganlyniad positif tu hwnt. O ran cefnogi gweithlu y gwasanaeth iechyd, byddwn yn ffocysu ar cynyddu'r defnydd o'r Gymraeg mewn cyrsiau olradd leni, fel rhan ac yn adeiladu ar y gwaith da a wnaethpwyd o ran rhan 1 o'r adolygiad strategol o addysg iechyd proffesiynol. Byddwn hefyd yn cefnogi'r strategaeth gweithlu, ble mae'r Gymraeg yn rhedeg drwy'r strategaeth fel llunyn arian, ac yn olaf byddwn yn darparu cyrsiau a modiwlau drwy gyfrwng y Gymraeg fydd yn canolbwyntio ar gwella sgiliau iaith ac ar defnydd o'r iaith Gymraeg mewn sefyllfaoedd proffesiynol. Felly, diolch yn fawr iawn i chi.
Diolch, David. Apologies to guests. I think maybe the Welsh translation wasn't working straight away, but hopefully you've picked up the key points from the slide anyway. That's us. That's my team. It's been a really challenging year, really exciting year in lots of ways. But you know, the key to getting through these things and to making a success of whatever the challenges are in front of us is having a great team around us. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of them for the support they've given me through the last year and to the organisation as well. So I think, Chairman, back to you.
Well, thanks, Alex. Thanks, team. That was quite a session. Have we got any, Angharad, have we got any questions from our guests?
No, we haven't got any questions at the moment, Chair.
Right. Well, this is your opportunity. If you've got anything you wish to know or ask, this is your opportunity.
Can I just mention as well, Chairman, while people are thinking about that, the showcase events later on.
Yeah.
Topics of COVID response, education and training transformation, and also our leadership. So if people would like a little bit more information and perhaps to get into conversations in the context of some of those things, then please come back a little bit later on for those showcase sessions.
The thing that, I mean, when you're in the middle of this, you don't realise how much is going on. And it's only when you look back and see the journey. I know colleagues working at the front end of the NHS have been absolutely amazing, together with their colleagues in social care, in directly delivering care. But I have to say, they've also continued to train and support and mentor the students and the trainees. And the trainees and the students have benefited hugely by witnessing and seeing what good care is about and what supportive environments the NHS and social care have been to each other. The leadership agenda that we've started, the compassionate leadership, this compassionate leadership isn't squidgy, it isn't soft, it's really important. And I think the phrase listening with intensity is really something that we need to be doing. The well-being of us all, I mean, this is a joyful thing to be involved in training and educating people. Our staff work very, very hard. Our board members, the independent board members, are really committed. And I have to say that when we went through last summer, it was almost as if, you know, let's hope we don't get into further trouble. Then from Christmas onwards, we certainly did face this huge wave, second wave of COVID. I think we made decisions at that time to protect education and training, particularly for our nurses and therapy students. I think that was quite a brave decision, but it has meant that people qualify and they're ready now. And I think it's quite a remarkable thing that together, when we work together, education, public service, and good leadership, I think it's a remarkable thing we can achieve. So, you know, I have to say that it is an absolute honour to chair this organisation, and it's uplifting to see so much innovation and so much interest in the day-to-day work that the organisation does. The problem is, of course, it's limitless. But that's the great thing. We're not just working for today, we're actually working for the tomorrow. And that means things like digital, good planning, the Welsh language, they're all really important. So the work of this organisation speaks directly to the programme of government, to the Future Generations Act, the socio-economic duty, and to a healthier Wales. So it makes it really meaningful. I still haven't got any questions that I can see, Angharad.
No, Chris, no questions yet.
In
Back
that,
in an hour for the showcase so
Yeah.
people can have a think of questions then if they like.
so there will be other opportunities during the showcase event for you to ask any questions you have or get more detail. I do need to say thank you so much to our visitors for coming to this AGM. There's been over 35 people here, and I hope it's been interesting and will stimulate your interest in the further work of HEIW. But I'll say it once again, thank you for the partnership and for being able to be involved and engaged with your agendas to all our partners out there. Diolch o galon. Hwyl am tro. Bye for now. See you at the showcase event.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.